Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. Sorry to keep you waiting for a minute here today. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I see we already have some people in the chat. Mario's in the stream. Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Mario. Good to see you here today. Johnny is here. Good morning, all. Bob is saying happy fall, everybody. Happy fall. It is officially the first day of fall today, right? And we are feeling that fall weather where I am at in New Jersey. It's very cool today. There is a chill in the air. Actually, before we get into our stock market topics, my family just went apple picking yesterday. So we are in the full fall spirit. Has anybody gone apple picking this year that's watching the streams? Maestro is here saying, morning, guys. Good morning, Maestro. It probably shocks you guys here today, but the market's green. Ironic, kidding. But QQQ is up again. The SPY is up. The Dow is up. The Russell is up. Everything is green today. We have a lot of great stories to get into throughout the stream. Hit that like button if you love our live streams and are here all the time. We appreciate you all. We've been getting a lot of love on X and YouTube recently on the stream, so I appreciate you guys. We are going to begin the stream when George gets in here today with the calendar switching over from Q3 to Q4 next week. So this is the last full week of Q3 in terms of the calendar, at least, of the stock market. And if you guys read our newsletter, we are noticing that the biggest trade in MAGS, the ETF, occurred last week. And the last time this happened was before the pullback in April. But the difference then was that our QQQ net option sentiment was in single digits, and now we're above 40, or were when this trade occurred. So is it a sign that the market's just going to keep continuing higher and melting up for the rest of the year? We will get into all of that. Then I want to bring up Oklo, a stock that is making insane moves. Last week alone, I believe it was up 50%. And I want to ask George I think it's a good opportunity to bring up Prospero and our crowdfund. If you haven't seen it yet, we're on Republic. But we have our own revenue here at Prospero. It's not anything crazy, but we have our revenues, and we're trying to raise that $16 million valuation on crowdfund, on Republic with our crowdfund. And Oklo has zero revenue and a $20 billion market cap. So what does that tell us about Oklo, and is this move coming to a close? Is it stretched a bit right now? But we'll let George answer that. Obviously, it looks good in our signal, so maybe not, but we shall see. Then we'll talk about another signal favorite, Iron, going up again today, announcing new updates, more investments in their GPUs of NVIDIA and AMD, raising their AI cloud ARR guidance, and the stock hitting new all-time highs. Maestro's on our YouTube chat saying last night's newsletter was a great read. Thank you, Maestro. Shout out to Matt and George, the two really behind the newsletters. They do a great, great job. If you guys ever, I think a lot of you are subscribers to our newsletter, but if you'd ever miss it and want to catch up quick on it, I post a recap on our Twitter, on our X feed every Monday morning of the Sunday newsletter. So it kind of breaks it down quickly. But yeah, you should read the whole thing because it is a good one this week for sure. Next story we'll get into is another signal favorite, ASTS, up also today. Let me check at Iron and ASTS now just to make sure we're still up. You know how things can swing in the market. So Iron is up 7% still, yes, and ASTS is up 4%. So yes, both are still up. ASTS is up after they made a new partnership with Latin America's biggest telco. And this is kind of like a double win for ASTS because they got a new partner and they also took this partnership from Starlink. So they're kind of like hurting their biggest competitor while also gaining for their own business. So it's a win-win there, and the shares are higher. And the signals have been on the stock for a while, and it is just all of these stocks that were not so known by the market and have grown from being a couple billions in market cap to tens of billions, and the Prospero signals highlighted them. I think that's really cool, and I love bringing them back up. And it kind of leads us into another topic, spinning off of that, about ARK-K. So Kathy Wood, everybody probably remembers her during the COVID days. ARK-K was booming with all the liquidity in the stock market. Well, ARK-K is having a good year. They're up almost 50%, but they're still down 50% from those all-time highs. So I want to ask George, why have our signals picked up all of these great, um, mid to small cap growth stocks that are, have promising technology that you would think RK with their tech would be like all over and would have allowed them to take advantage, but it has not, while Prospero has. So what separates, the Prospero tech from the ARC technology? I see George has entered the stream. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today. Good to have you in
Hello.
here. A few more topics to
Appreciate the
run through.
newsletter compliments. Yes, thanks.
Oh yeah, everybody loved the newsletter this week. Um, and that's going to be one of the first things we're getting into in just a moment. Just one more topic here, or no, two more topics to go through before we'll jump into our first one. Snapchat stock is experiencing its highest weekly and monthly volume of all time, and we still have another full week of September, and it's already the highest monthly volume the stock has ever had in its history. So, what is going on at Snapchat? What is brewing? The stock was up to open today. Does somebody know something? And people are theorizing could have something to do with their AR glasses or an update on those, but we will have to wait and see. And last but not least, we have BMNR stock now owning more than 2% of the world's ETH supply. Can BMNR be the MSTR of ETH? Um, we'll get into all the details of if that is possible or not. I see Kevin in the chat saying good morning from Lakeland, Florida. Good morning, Kevin. Happy to have you here today. One last call out. If you're watching on X or YouTube, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're about to go through all of the topics. I hope you guys get some value. If you have any questions about single stocks, AI, this overall stock market, macro, anything, let us know in our chat. We'll be happy to answer. But George, we are officially beginning the last full week of Q3 as far as the calendar goes in the stock market. The markets are green today as we open up. The QQQ net option sentiment is at 36, SPY at 30. So that's probably one of the higher combination scores we've seen in a while. That's a little bit higher than the SPY has been most of the time recently. Um, we mentioned in our newsletter about a trade in the MAGS ETF that was the largest in history. And the last time this occurred was in April, but there was a lot of different factors as to why we might have seen high volume in April versus now. Can you talk about the differences and what you are reading from, finding that trade that occurred just last week?
Yeah, right. We it's always important to mention that that there are two sides to every trade. I think some people always like they'll talk about a trade and they'll be like, "Oh, bullish," right? It's like, well, there was a bullish and a bearish person in that trade. Not inherently, right? Someone could be taking profits, someone could be bullish, but that's kind of like it's not taking profits is kind of inherently not so bullish. So yeah, I definitely think that that it's an interesting time. Like in April, like obviously, it's easier to see in retrospect that that looks like a more bearish move, and maybe someone, maybe there's someone that's more informed and someone that isn't. Clearly, you can see that much more clearly after the result, right? When you see a big trade like that happen and then the market tanks, it's much more clear that the person that was the seller in that scenario knew something. And here, yeah, I'd say in light of so many large transactions going on and the market running so high, I think it's very easy to look at that and saying that like someone was happy to take their profits and someone thought that this was another leg up. But you never actually know. But when you situate it, you can sometimes make really good educated guesses before it happens. And to me, that's what it looks like has happened.
A trade of that size, could it ever be for like a short-term position? And when I'm asking that is because like so we have like 1 week plus I think Monday and Tuesday of Q3 left. Could this trader or investor be looking to take advantage of the melt up until then? Or is something of this size and magnitude a more longer term, like for the rest of the year at least, or how do you feel about that? Could we see this reverse quickly, or is it one of those things that is there to stay for a bit now?
It isn't necessarily inherently one way or the other. There's an argument to be made that if you think you have alpha, that you wouldn't put it all into one. But the other side is if it's like a mags trade, that's kind of just like it's buying kind of a riskier version of the whole market, more risk, more upside. But yeah, I don't know that you can read too far into these things, in terms of what the person's thinking. Like we can wrap something around it, but it certainly could be a trade, right? That could be your rush to get in because you think it's a, you know, if it's a longer term one, there's certainly something to the argument that maybe you'll get some today, maybe you'll get some next Monday and then next Wednesday, right? You don't necessarily have to get it all like in one time. So that does lead to perhaps the idea that it's a little more there's a little more urgency to it, but it could also be it could also just be a case of like you freed up capital for that specifically and you'd rather just deploy it into, like, even if you're going to pay a little more as the price rises, into the Mag 7 that day because it's you just have the capital allocated to it, and maybe you sold some other things to be able to buy that big of a chunk of the Mag 7. You can't infer much exactly. We can, what we're doing when we analyze this, and I'm talking about it now, I'm basically saying like these are the tea leaves and this is what I think from the tea leaves is most likely, but all the time you can be wrong on this stuff without actually knowing what it's thinking. And I mean the only other thing to mention is you never know if it's a person on the other end of this. Like, yeah, this big of a trade, it could be a person, but you don't know if this is just some like massive hedge fund that has like momentum triggers on it. It's just like if we clear the all-time high, we hit resistance and we bounce off this number of times, then the algorithm says we deploy that much. So it could be like we said right there, we said at the beginning, it was like, I think in this situation, what our guess would be is some institution taking profits and then some institution that thinks there's another leg up. But in that situation, it could be an institution taking profits and a bot that can't ignore the technical setup.
Well, speaking of momentum, you've mentioned recently how this is a momentum market and kind of the stocks that are going up are more likely to go up in the future. Can this changing of Q3 to Q4 next week be a event that kind of changes where the momentum lies in the market? It seems like the stocks, which we're going to get into a lot of them today, like the Oklos, ASTSs, Irons, there's no reason for them to stop going up until something changes. Does this changing of quarters have that potential, or not really? And we're just going to see the same stocks working unless something else occurs in the market.
Well, the one thing that I think is always interesting about what you consider is like an irrational market, and certainly a lot of people think momentum markets are irrational. And there was a space that I was on, like I can just retweet it right now in case anyone, like, it was about Prospero, but I was on Stock Talk, or Stocks on Spaces, that Stock Talk is obviously the guy there. But he had a really interesting take on momentum and retail, and it's something that, like, I would say I'm a lot softer with this sometimes, just because it's like it feels like a point that here, I'm retweeting it in case anyone's curious, because I really think this is good. Because sometimes I think there's a balance, but he said it, I think he said it really well, where he was talking about how retail definitely has power now, and you can see it, and they'll buy the names. And I talk about it in a bit of a different way, but I think he made a really good point that that retail is comfortable that eventually it's going to get there. Like, and he made the point about Nvidia. We talked about that, and even back, when people were first buying Nvidia, they just thought they made good graphics cards and they used the games and that kind of thing. So they were right, and they were wrong. I mean, but more right, obviously, but they didn't necessarily see the graphics cards becoming what they were to like neural networks and everything like that. They just saw them as powerful cards that were good for games. So I think um, I think that you have to respect that we're in a market where if enough retail and institutions that get behind retail have decided that something is going to have long-term success, the short-term valuation matters a lot less. But one of the interesting things is when I was getting into cipher mining, I also looked at iron. Um, and those two stocks were about the same in relation to their average price target and their high price target. Like over the average and a little over the max. And I thought that was very interesting because it was about the same ratio relative to those numbers. So that is to say, whether it's retail or whether it's momentum bots that are trading this, there does seem to be, at least when I check that data point, some reason to it. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting time. The market continues to show that it has new momentum. And I mean, I'm checking the QQQ today. Yeah, I was like, we're slowing down a little bit. I mean, 0.22% up for the QQQ is not too slow. But yeah, it does look like this momentum can continue. But to your point, I do think we have to watch at these all-time highs. We have to watch out for news events because I'd say also now more than ever, news events move the market.
Well, thank you to Matt. I see he reposted our stream on X. Appreciate you, Dr. Carter there. And I want to bring up a few of these momentum stocks here today. First one, we can start with Oklo, a stock that, let me see their move in the past just week alone. I think they were up like 30% on Friday, just alone after having rallied so much. So they're up 57% in the last week and almost 1,500% in the past year. So this company, we've been talking about them kind of through their whole entire history. We were on them pretty early, just from the Sam Altman aspect of it in the very beginning. They're now at a $20 billion market cap with $0 in revenue. And I thought this was funny, especially now that we're going through our own crowdfund with Prospero, trying to raise at a $16 million market cap with, not crazy revenues, but at least we have revenues. And then you see this company that's on the public markets with zero revenue and a 20 billion market cap. Can you kind of just talk about how you feel about the nature of the market that we're in Oklo when you see something like that going on in the markets?
Yeah, I mean, some things just have a lot of run in them. They have a lot of burn, right? And I think that nuclear is that way because it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to need more power. And nuclear, there's safety concerns with it, but in terms of the sheer amount of power it can generate and the cost of it, right? There's nothing even remotely close out there. I mean, people always talk about, other forms that can come, but in the future where we need that much more power, you know, nuclear is probably it. What we're talking about, especially if we get to quantum, there's no way we can start to build, quantum systems without, nuclear or some kind of even more robust form of power. So, even if there's no revenues, it's one of those things where I feel like people feel they're getting in on chips before they happen, right? Even though the nuclear capacity isn't there, the technology isn't there, I'm not sure all of these nuclear companies even make it, right? Because they're so early phase, right? There's going to be winners in this. I think Oklo is a good bet because of how well connected they are, and I think that's why everybody likes them so much. But there's a real need for that, and people like to be invested in things where they know there'll be a need for it later on, even if it's early phase, right? Because you even look at always like looking at a level ahead, right? And you could even say like, well, I don't know, a lot of people say quantum computers are, there's different timelines, but we can't even guarantee that, NVIDIA chips will be needed 10, 15 years from now, right? But looking in that future, whether it's NVIDIA chips or whether it's quantum or whatever, we know we're going to need more power. And right now, while we don't necessarily know, like that's a big question, right? Do we even know if let's say NVIDIA doesn't do quantum well and other companies do quantum well, and we're just going to say for this exercise that they do. We don't even know if the most valuable company in the world will really be necessary if this new technology comes out, and they don't. But what we do know, either technology, whether it's, the kind of chips we make now, really souped up versions of them, which are obviously coming. NVIDIA chips get faster and faster. Or if it's something on the quantum level, we know either of those will need nuclear. And that's the big difference in why people are valuing this the way they are.
So all the things we're mentioning there, like the AI, quantum, nuclear, where is our economy going? And I bring this up to set up another topic I'm going to bring up in a moment, but like once these things are in the world and active, like we have a bunch of nuclear power, there are quantum computers, AI is like even more advanced than today. Like it seems like it's just such a different world. It's hard to imagine, but it's not that far away, like maybe a decade or so. Um, do you think that's the case? Like, is the world really, are we going to see like the most change we've seen in our lifetimes over the next decade? Do you think?
I think we will continue to see like I think I don't think it's going to be 1-to-1 in terms of year to year, but if you're looking at like 2 years, 3 years forward, I think is going to be always that much faster than the 3 years before that in terms of like the acceleration of all that. I mean, it's Moore's law. It's coming. I don't think people are really ready for what it's going to look like, and like how much our world is going to change all the time. Where I get caught up, and it's kind of funny because this is already come and gone. I've had people tell me like, oh, like AI is going to take everybody's job in the next 6 months, blah, blah. And I'm always just like, well, I think it's really, actually, I'll give something more concrete that someone told me like now almost a year ago. They said that there's no point in managing your social media account that much or putting much money into it because within the next 6 months, bots are going to control all of it. There's going to be no real things, right? And there are a lot more bots, there's no doubt, but there's still, we're sitting here a year later from that prediction, and you definitely still need real content. So I think people could be really overblown with this stuff, but I also think on the other side, there's people that don't take it seriously enough and don't understand that, like, yes, in 5 years, the world is going to look very different.
Well, I would like to debate that guy because he's really coming after what I do. So I don't know who that was, but I'd like to talk to him. But I asked you that topic really to set up this next one. Of there was a image going around of Google search trends, and the search help with mortgage is hitting its highest level since like 08, 09 during the crash. And I'm setting all this up with the tech and this piece of information about the Google search trends. Like, how much does the consumer matter for the stock market and the economy at this point? We're seeing the market rip to all-time highs. You've talked about like the consumer debt levels for over a year now, how they're concerning. It seems like the consumer is under stress, but it doesn't seem to matter for any of the stocks. So what do you make of that? Like maybe this stretched consumer, but just it's not seeming to matter for these companies.
I think the two things are very related. Um, and I think it has to do with um, the stock market, right? And I think that's why, we say like retail fervor. I think retail really continues to want it to go up, because uh, it's a money generator, right? It's a money generator. I do think people get more strained, and I do think that's why one of the things about this bubble that people are talking about, right? Because I do think if the stock market goes down 20%, I think that'll have huge ripple effects on people not being able to like extract money from their stock accounts, and it goes in the opposite direction. And I think there'll be defaults. And I think that's why the Trump administration is so interested in lowering rates, right? Because that keeps this machine going. It keeps the stock market, it keeps the stock market going up. It keeps these debt payments, lower. It keeps money. I think there are some real estate problems brewing. And so yeah, I think that's where some people differ, right? I think some people are just like, well, we got to keep the machine running, and we got to keep this all-time high thing flowing, or whatever, or there might be trouble. And then there's people on the other side saying like, well, sometimes you have to let that smaller bubble pop. You have to let the markets equalize themselves, so they don't just keep on propping themselves up and falling that much harder.
So we're now, since 08, 09, we're, 15, 16 years removed. There hasn't been like a true, like, I feel like crash where like a lot of, bad businesses got wiped out. There was COVID, which was very short lived. It was like a basically V recovery. And then this tariff pullback, which was even shorter. And it seems like the support of like printing money and stuff has really propelled all of this. Are you worried that we could have a scenario that's building like with this Google Trends thing that is now at all-time highs again of people searching for help with mortgage? Like, is there a possible, like, under the surface, like really bad situation that's been building because of this money printing and support that hasn't come to light that could over the next year, 5 years, since it's been so long since we've had that like prolonged like issue with the economy? Um, or no? Are you not seeing signs of that?
I think two things are true, and we talk about this all the time. Like, every intelligent markets person I know says there's a bubble coming, there might be a crash coming, right? But then the other thing we remind people all the time on the other side is like, I hear people say that all the time, and then, it's a year or 2 years or more, and the market runs for that much longer, right? Both things are true. I think with the amount we propped up the economy, um, it's only so long until there's a pretty serious correction or a crash. But would I, like we were talking about in the last segment, would I necessarily am I confident that it happens even the next 6 months? No, probably not. Am I confident it happens in the next 2 years at some point? Probably a lot more confident of that, where it's just like, I do just think there's an inevitability of all of this debt, lowering rates to, I mean, the scenario that I'm most worried about, right, is just like a crunch that's coming, which is just like, we lower rates, right? Inflation starts going up again, pinching everyone's budgets more. And um and with all that trending, right? We can't keep lowering rates to do it. Eventually we have to address the inflation, or the inflation just gets out of control, right? Which is obviously even worse. And then um and then eventually, right, something pops a little, there's a news event that makes the market go down, then all of these strained, like all these people with strained finances that were relying on the stock market to continue to make them money, all of a sudden that turns into losses. And not only that, they sell to cover things, to cover their expenses, because they can't just extract money out of profits anymore. Now they have to sell. That accelerates it. Maybe it hits stops. Maybe institutions see that and they start to pull out because they say it's inevitable. I think at the end of the day, if credit isn't the strain on its own, I think we're probably looking at inflation cascading into the credit problem.
So interesting, and we'll continue to cover this side of it. I want to bring it back to a single stock, Iron, because they are up today and they've looked good in our signals. I think our signals are actually very early to highlight them as a possible good investment, but they are expanding their AI cloud capacity with 12.4 thousand new GPUs NVIDIA and AMD. So not just NVIDIA, which I think is interesting. They're making almost a $700 million investment, raising their cloud ARR target to 500 million by Q1 2026. Um, every time we've seen one of these, data center players, they were Bitcoin miners. Now it's more of a blurred line. Venture more into AI, the market just reacts positively each and every time. Is there any downside for these companies making these investments? Because, like I'm saying, they are getting such positive reactions, and the AI industry is growing so much. It seems like a no-brainer why they wouldn't like continue to spend money in that area. Like why aren't other companies in that space following Iron's lead if it's such a gold mine for these companies?
I mean, I think they'd like to. You kind of have to be early to that, right? And I mean, Iron's probably, we were in on Iron early, but we got out. It would look good in the signals. That's probably like our biggest miss this year. We could have really ridden that up. It looked great. Anyway, I think it can be hard, right? I think we kind of see this sometimes in a lot of things, but AI especially, where like if you have a first mover and everybody gets excited about what they're doing, you don't necessarily get the same excitement if you're viewed as more copying what they're doing. But I also think there are plenty of places doing very similar things. I mean, I think Cypher Mining is doing a very similar thing. And you never know. Probably any number of small companies are considering the exact same thing, and we won't know about them until they go public or they get bigger. But that would be an interesting like search. I wouldn't be surprised um, to know that they were around.
The thing that I wonder is, so if Iron is making this investment and it's, boosting their revenues and all of this, how long are these chips good for? Like, are they going to have to continue to make these investments in these chips year after year because, Nvidia and AMD, they keep innovating and making better chips? And are they going to get outcompeted if they don't keep buying new chips year after year? And is that kind of a drag on this headline and like maybe something that people aren't thinking about as much? Um, like, how long lasting is this $700 million investment to their
I think
business?
they will. Um, I think they will have to keep buying, but it's about signaling the market, right? And they're doing it well, right? You always have to remember that you can like there's a cost of capital. And the more energy you can generate around your stock, the more if they're like, "Hey, we think this purchase can make us go up 10-20%." Actually, those chips might be, depending on your market cap, like let's look at them. Like we could do some easy math on that. Let's say they went up 10% on this announcement, right? That's $1 billion. So those chips are like they got paid in a certain way. You could say they got paid 300 million to get those chips, right? It's not that simple. Like I'm saying that sort of tongue in cheek. But what isn't tongue in cheek is the idea that you can play these headlines to your advantage to increase the value of the company. And yeah, these things, there's always new ones coming out, but I think most people are agreed that we're going to be short on compute. And even if there's better chips in 2-3 years, like it doesn't hurt to have like the chips you bought like it's not like those can't do anything anymore. They're just not the best chips. And you need an unlimited amount of these chips. And if the market is going to react positively to you getting that additional infrastructure, you should do it all day long.
I guess I was asking that question because I don't really know. Like, I know people like think like, oh, you shouldn't buy a car because it's like a depreciating asset. Does the market and the business world and like, everybody view chips that way as well? Like, is that consensus opinion or no?
Um, no, because of what I just said. I mean, the problem with a car is, um, I mean, I don't really know the exact shelf life of these high performance chips, especially if you're using them all the time. Um, Actually, let's put it this way because it's much better, right? a car is something that you can use a binary 1-0. It gets you to where you are. You can do your job, but there's not really an ROI on that car, especially like you could buy a really shitty car, right? And it could get you from A to B, right? And it wouldn't make that much difference in your ROI than actually a really expensive car. Like assuming you're not in sales, you're not trying to impress everybody, you're just going and you're moving widgets around, right? You get your car, you take it, you move widgets, right? Now in the chip example, right? If Iron is selling compute, right, their ROI increases. Like there's a profit margin on every single chip, right? Like that's definitely not true of cars. Like if you bought 2, 3, 4 cars, you'd still just be able to drive to work, move your widgets around, right? But these, like, even if the shelf life is equal, and I think you're probably going to get more time out of a chip providing like you some function than a car that's like, you know, you're running into the ground. That I don't know 100%, especially on these high performance ones. They might really like, I know example for Bitcoin mining, a GPU could really run into the ground. But there's an ROI on all this capacity, and assuming Iron can max out what they sell or come close to maxing it out, the more the merrier, right? I was starting to think about your question, JC, because it's interesting. And so for something to be considered cap X, it has to change your business, right? So a factory, it has to change like something like the margins on your business noticeably, right? That's why you could expense it, right? I do think you can depreciate hardware regardless. You can depreciate hardware. I'm not quite sure something can be considered cap X if it's part of your gross profit, right? If you built a factory with a lot of modern chips, like let's say, because it ultimately reduced, you could sell a lot, you could generate a lot more units for something at a lower margin, right? That is classic capex. The chips are probably assets that get depreciated, but I don't think you could, like, when you have capex that's like below the line, that doesn't come in your your profit margins, your early profit margins, near your top line profit margins. But that's why people like capex, because it's viewed as like outside of your normal operations operating profit. That's what I was looking for. But I do think because if you're something like Iron, yeah, there we go. If you're something like Iron, it's part of your core business. So I don't think it can be capex, but it is depreciated.
When you were talking about the differences of the cars and the chips, and how the cars are just a widget mover, it made me get more bullish on full self-driving because that kind of changes that for cars. I feel like once that's available, it becomes more of a useful asset at that point, which is just around the corner as well. And we're seeing Tesla stock kind of going up day after day, seemingly recently. We even saw Musk and Trump together. Are you feeling more bullish about Tesla towards the end of the year? I think November and December historically are like the best months for Tesla stock.
Yeah, I mean, I should check net option sentiment for Tesla here. It was softening a little bit. That's why I dropped it. It was down to a 51 momentum score. So I kind of dropped it for risk management practices, but it's still sitting there at 100 upside where it has been. It's going to be, I should really, if Tesla keeps going up, I should really have like our 100 upside stocks, because it was like Meta, Coin, Palantir were the ones that we've seen like for long periods. And I mean, those are pretty much like some of the success stories. We should really do a case study on that. But yeah, it's at 69 and option sentiment. It's a little soft. We had a nice 25% gain on it. We might, if it goes up again in that option sentiment, we might choose to, but I'm concerned. There's a lot of enthusiasm around it, but it has run up in price again. I think there are some risks on the self-driving execution side. But yeah, we obviously got back in, had a nice gain.
You know, it'd be an interesting thing to do in 2026 since you use the signals and have managed so well in the past couple of years. I don't know if there are trading tools out there, but if you could like compete against them for the full year and see if like you could beat them, like, or even if you just used like ChatGPT and all of the like LLMs and see how they would do if they were like investing and see if you could like beat them for the full year. I think that'd be a good challenge. But I want to also go now to Snapchat, bringing them up today because they are experiencing the highest monthly volume levels, and we still have a full week left in the month. And last week was also their all-time highest weekly volume, and the stock was up today. So people don't really know what is around the corner for Snapchat specifically to as to why the volume is so high. But the stock has struggled for so long. People are speculating maybe an AR glasses announcement coming soon. Is Snapchat interesting to you at all with the volume uptick we are seeing recently?
I mean, it's very hot on net social, which is like kind of funny because like it's kind of funny for a stock to be hot on net social when no one actually knows what the news what the news is, just like probably like speculating on it. 74 net option sentiment is okay. I mean, it was higher like last. I mean, it's got a nice time series. There was a real nice rise as it was going up, but 64 upside, 74 net options, not enough.
Jonathan is in the chat asking about your favorite three small cap stocks at the moment.
Do they have to be below 2 million, 2 billion? Because I'm not sure I have any on that front. Um, but I mean, the smaller cap ones, I mean, we really like LEU. LEU is like at 5 billion. Like we really, really like that one. I think Root for different reasons, we're in it. And I think I think it's a big potential recovery play. I mean, obviously with rates going down, I think I think that's positive, for Root. Nothing else really comes to mind. That stands out as much as I would say Root and LEU.
All right, got some good picks there. I was interested. I hadn't looked at ARK in a while, so I was like, oh, with the market seemingly like all these speculative stocks ripping, I wonder how they've been doing. And they're up 48% this year, but they're still down 50% from their all-time highs in 2021 when Cathie Wood was the darling of Wall Street. Why do you think they have not been able to reclaim their highs, especially with like the market that we've been in this year? It seems like the market that they should just excel in, and they are up 50%, but still down so much from their prior peak. So what has separated like ARK's strategy and their lack of being able to just continually, outperform the markets from what you've been able to do with Prospero and the signals? And I mean, you're kind of investing in a lot of the stocks that I feel like they would like to be in, like these high growth tech companies. So, what's going on there?
I mean, ARK is up 80% in the last year.
Yeah, but they're down 50% from 2021. They're all time highs.
Oh, that's a good, let's see, 20. Oh, yeah. I don't think that has anything to do with I don't think it has anything to do with how well, maybe it does have something to do. Like, I think back then, Cathie Wood was like the game in town. Um, in like Grove, she was like it was just like she got like a manager premium, right? Where everybody was just like, well, I want Cathie Wood. I think there's a few trends that have happened. I think people are much more confident today in picking their own stocks, finding them on things like social media. Of 2021 to now, like the pandemic basically totally changed the game on that research methodology. So I think that's thing one, people are more comfortable. And I also think like now she's not the only game in town. I think crypto is taking a lot. I think there's a lot of like, retail type growth investors that, would rather just invest in crypto than anything in stocks, no matter the manager premium. But uh, but yeah, I think it's those two things. Um, definitely.
So we got a couple of questions in our chat. First from Mario. asking about small caps constantly touted, but isn't the reality that they've lagged as a group? Does this relate to visibility and market momentum?
I mean, they've lagged as a group on longer time frames. Um, but we had like a 6 month period of last year where they were really, maybe even longer, where they were the market leaders, and we're kind of seeing that now. I do think that it is tough because um because uh sorry, I lost my train of thought. Um I think it's tough because you don't know when the momentum ends, right? And I think with all this exciting like large cap stuff, all this AI stuff, you never know like next earnings if there's going to be like a next leg of AI excitement and everybody quickly exits their small caps. But I mean, there's a reason we've been integrating more small caps because it's a nice run. But even when we do it, we're just like making sure that we have exposure. We're not getting overloaded because we like a lot of large cap growth, but we did never want to be over allocated.
Well, that the point that Mario brought up of visibility, and it's something that you said that always stuck in my mind of like, why would you invest in a small cap company where it's risky when you know Nvidia is going to grow like when they were growing like 100% quarter over quarter or 50%, and all of these giant tech companies are growing like 10 or 20s of percent. It's such like a guarantee. You kind of know it's going to happen, and the stocks are performing so well. It just makes the small caps kind of like so much less attractive at that point.
Yeah. No, I mean you said it right there, but I mean I think when people look at small caps, they're looking for something that can 10x or 20x, and we're seeing it right here with iron. Like people that got into iron a few months ago are going to get a much better return than you're going to get on Nvidia on I think this time scale, perhaps like perhaps a longer time scale than that. So there are opportunities, but there's a lot more risk. So you really have to pick your spots.
We also have a question from Matt asking about the China stocks because several are in our bull screener at the moment, especially Baba and Baidu.
Let's take a look. Okay, so we're in Baba's number two in the in yeah, Baba's two, and Baidu is four in the short term bear, and in short term bull. In the long term bull, Baba is two and Baidu's four. So yeah, that's interesting.
Well, we've seen these China stocks pop up on our signals from time to time, and they've had big moves very quickly. But over the past year or so, they've kind of been faded every time. Do you expect at some point that these will be more sustainable bull market rallies for these companies, or are we going to continue seeing these like starts and stops of these stocks?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like one of the like when I see them that high, I tend to be like, that's saying something. That people are that bullish. And this morning, when the market was a little softer, Baba and Baidu were like two of the tech-oriented companies that were green. We're up about 2%. So I think you can see that there's a lot of resilience, a lot of upside. And I think it has everything to do, like we're talking about, with it looks like we're largely, there's been a little back and forth, but we haven't really had any flare-ups with China for a while on the trade front. And so they always trade because of trade worries. They always trade on a bit of a discount. So if it's like a real, if people are feeling more comfortable, those are stocks that are always going to look to have value. Like the risk in them is that it turns, but like we're at a point where we can't ignore it because like second and fourth in the long and short term bull screener, that's too much to ignore. And I think I probably have another screener. I think I had another, large cap there. Oh yeah. Then we have the large cap bull screener that I put up on Friday, and they're 1 and 2. So there you go.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of bullish momentum there. Another stock that's gaining bullish momentum today, and it's had it a lot recently, is ASTS. They landed a major investment from Latin America's biggest telco, and it's giving them access to 300 million plus mobile subscribers, and it's for accelerating their US expansion as well. And this partner, America Mobiles, was Starlink. So ASTS is replacing Starlink as the partner. So it's kind of like a double whammy, I feel like. Like they are gaining to their business while also detracting from their one of their biggest competitors. How big do you think this news is for ASTS? And the shares were up, I think, about 10% this morning.
Yeah, I mean it's huge. They've slowed down a little bit. They were really going strong. It's about 5%. I've considered getting back in. I really don't want to mistime it. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Like normally I will get in on ASTS at about 80 net option sentiment. Above that tends to be very bullish for them. So I'm tempted. But ASTS can just move so fast in the other direction. I'll see how I'm feeling. I might do it during the portfolio update. I'm looking at. I'll see what's in momentum score. I'm thinking about getting in. Like I've been very quick to get in and out of iHeartMedia. But I really think it might be heading down again. The downside is heading up. What was it? The 16th. Yeah, it's headed back up. The upside is headed down. Maybe I should have hung on to it, but it's burned me too much. But we'll see.
What the heck was going with iHeartMedia? It was like swinging so much, I feel like last week. Was that like a short squeeze, you think?
I don't know. I do know that it's very odd. It's like it's lower in our signatures than when it was, but it's high. It's still trading at 292, and its high price target is 190. So WTF? Like that's just
Well,
making me feel like I do want to get back in. Um,
you were
but
mentioning recently how Prospero has grown to the point where sometimes you have like questions of whether our signals are being kind of, I think, reversed. And iHeartMedia, it's a very low volume stock. Like today, so far, it only has 180,000 shares traded. If the stock is super low volume, it would be easier to kind of move quickly, right?
could be, yeah, definitely. I've had the thought. I mean, I can't have it too much because I still have to do what I think. Right? I can't start looking over my shoulder and being like, oh, if I get this small cap, are people gonna buy it? But it's crossed my mind. I like, especially when it was happening to iHeartRadio and iRobot, two kind of shitty companies. But we'll see.
Sorry, I was laughing. I read Matt's comment. I tried to tell him, Steven, I think he's got the ASTS, I told you so on George, I guess, right now.
He told me this morning when I think it was up a little more. So yeah, I'm looking.
We have one more topic to bring up on the stream today. We've had over 1,800 people tuning in between X and YouTube. Thank you all for being here. Any last questions you want to get into that we haven't covered? Feel free to comment them in our chat. Like it up. Follow us on X. Subscribe on YouTube. We're approaching 3,000 subscribers, so let's hope to get there soon. But I will
Yeah,
bring
get
up.
us over the edge.
Yep. I will bring up the last topic now as people are hopefully typing. We have BMNR, which is trying to be the MSTR of Ethereum. They now own more than 2% of the supply of ETH. So how realistic do you think it is for them to become this? And I ask this as MSTR is trading around $100 billion market cap, and BMNR is trading around the $10 billion range. So it would be a full order of magnitude if they were to achieve that. And MSTR has the spirit leader of Michael Saylor. BMNR has a comparable guy in Tom Lee. I feel like who could really become the head of that company. So how realistic do you think it is that they could achieve what MSTR has already?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of the same energy behind it. I do think Ethereum has a lot of room to run up. Um, and I think to your point, the combination of having someone like Tom Lee and the opportunity in front of them, a lot of what made MSTR run up was Michael Saylor and the cult of personality around him and the faith in Bitcoin long term. And there's a lot of there's a lot of ETH people, and there's a lot of people that see the value of having a company that purchases it, right? Because that will BMNR rising and Tom Lee being more of a spokesperson for it is very good for anyone that's long-term holders of it. So there's a lot of alignment there, and I could see that being the case. I could definitely see BMNR over the next 5 years going up a higher percentage, maybe even 1.5, 2x what MSTR does, regardless.
Interesting. What if we even shorten that time frame to like a year? Do you still feel the same way?
Still feel the same way.
Interesting. Well, I'm fascinated to watch BMNR because I know someone had you add them to our signals, I think, very early, and they were looking like their net options and upside were crazy.
I should have trusted it. Like it was like looking, and I got to learn to benchmark that better, because it was looking good even when um what am I saying? Even at BMNR, I just wanted to see when MSTR wasn't. So that's very interesting. Yeah, very nice net options chart on BMNR. All right, we're making the switch.
Yes, let's do the switch over. We'll get into the model portfolio, and we'll catch George back in the Prospero lab in just a moment. Let's take a look at the markets for everybody. Stick around with me while George is making the switch. Thank you all for being here today. I hope you enjoyed the topic so far. Let's check on the market and see how it's been going as we've been streaming. So it looks like we're kind of stalling out here. Russell is slightly in the red now, actually, barely, ever so slightly. The QQQ, SPY, and Dow are all green. Has anybody noticed it feels like all of the moves happen in like the overnight hours and then in the first and last 30 minutes of the day, and then like you kind of just tread water? It feels like the market's in like this pattern of just making the moves kind of and then just chilling out. Let's look at the QQQ and the SPY in Prospero. So right now we have the QQQ at 34 and the SPY at 27, which is the closest I feel like I've seen these two to each other in a while. Interesting to note that both are below the 40 bull bear line at the moment, but higher than we've been at for a lot of the time recently. Mario on the YouTube chat, interesting discussion. Thank you so much, Mario. I'm happy you enjoyed it today. I thought it was a good one as well. I hope everybody learned a little bit, had a good time in the streams. I think today my favorite part was the discussion around the chips and how whether they're depreciation in their asset or not, and that was cool. I've never really chatted about that before, so that was an interesting topic for sure. If anybody's watching the streams new, what we're about to do is do live updates to our model portfolio, so you'll get to see what stocks George is adding and dropping. And by the way, this is the portfolio that has outperformed the markets by 50+% for years and years and years. So you're getting some free alpha there. But he'll be back in here in just a moment and making the moves based on what we are seeing in the signals, as always. We will be live again this week at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. So everybody, you can set your notification bell on YouTube, or I don't know if X actually has a similar thing, but don't forget, hope to see all of you back here then. We go live every week, Monday, 11 a.m., Wednesday, 3 p.m., unless there's something going on, but typically those are our times. Jonathan said, any update on the notifications? Not from me. We'll have to wait and see if George has an update when he gets back in. Sorry if I missed the topic since you're late. Any update on alerts? JC and Jonathan, you guys think alike. We'll let George give you guys an update when he gets back in here, which should be any second now. Let's take a look around the markets, see if anything is moving bigly here. All right. Ooh, what's going on with Apple? They're up 4%. Interesting. Anybody know what's going on with Apple? I was not expecting to see that when I looked down. Apple is up 4%. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, all red. Tesla is in the green. Let's check in on NVIDIA. NVIDIA is red right now. Dustin said R&R. George, I was just looking at the markets. I was interested to see that Apple is up 4% today. I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on there. especially on a day when
maybe people like the iPhone that people said
Hmm.
they didn't like originally. What about RR, Dustin? I added it recently. I've been trying to be better about adding things I'm requested about.
some people were asking about the alerts too, Jonathan and JC, if you have any update.
Yeah, I don't know if you got I don't know if you got our Republic update. But unfortunately, we can't give out the perks before before it's over. So that kind of changed our whole plan. We had to reevaluate. But I do think tomorrow people will be getting the alerts. I'll send out an email telling people, what to expect, that kind of thing. We apologize for the delay. But especially when it became kind of a compliance thing with the crowd fund, we wanted to make sure that we were like legally in the right place with what we could offer and everything there. So we apologize, but excited to have it, coming out soon. All
There you
right,
go
so
for
we are
those
going
warnings.
to do. I mean, it still is. We kind of like to send out one of these anyway. Oh, let me share. Let me share my screen. We're going to do a we're going to do the screener. Well, one thing at a time, actually. Because we're going to look at the sectors and the caps before the screener. Okay, let's do this. All right, Stephen. QQQ and SPY and option sentiment, where are we at?
QQQ is 33. SPY is 27.
27? I thought you said 57 for a second. I was like, oh.
Yeah, 27.
It's been a while since we've heard anything like that. $32, $33?
33. Oh, it updated to 34. More bullish with SPY, but no reason to change our thesis, much as QQQ got a little lower than close of Friday.
Consumer defensive getting nailed.
Again, this is pretty similar to where we have been, but hard to ignore consumer defensive as a bear. We'll look to add a little more bull tech, but not too much.
All right, what is... Matt's now texting me. He couldn't... I don't know why you didn't post that in the thing, Matt. You're all over the place. You're doing the public callouts on ASTS. Now you're sending me the psychedelic stock on. I wonder, since Matt is an ex-pastor, if he doesn't want to be publicly associated with this.
Too
With
late.
the psychedelic stock. That is interesting. It's interesting, Matt. I'm probably gonna miss the boat on this one. Upside's going up too. 39 upside is just it's not good enough. But let's see. Let's indulge this. We'll add it to the trading portfolio. But let's indulge this a little bit. That is a big move. It's a big
What's the ticker?
CMPS.
I think I've heard of this. Compass, right?
Yeah. I mean, the daily is a little half hour. I don't know. Matt. It'll definitely go. I'll put it in the trading letter today. Anyone looking at that net options chart is tempting, although it was in the 60s last week. Let's watch it for the rest of today. I mean, that's a nice half-hour chart. We'll keep our eye on it. I'm going to add it to the trading now because I don't want to miss it in both portfolios. But we're doing this. I think this might be the exact same screener that I did. I'm not sure if it was growth. I think it might have been profitability, actually, that I did. So it'll be a little different, at least.
Dustin is in the chat asking about any solar or large-scale battery storage stocks that you like.
I mean, EOS is constantly looking good in our signals. That's the one that would stand out. But not tons because of the regulatory. I mean, batteries I think are better than solar. I would be. Well, look at NBIS. All right, this is at least slightly different. Okay. Let me know when it goes live, everybody. Steven, if you want to call out of somebody. Oh, I added BMNR in the trading portfolio. Okay. That's done. We're going to be really unoriginal.
Screener updated in the app.
Should I spell continuation right? I think I did, or close enough. All right. That's done. Let's get this open. Well, that's a big trip down for BM&R. I don't like that. What's going on? They were doing so well a second ago. Down 8. Damn. Okay. Let's get out of this. I want to get out of coin. Yeah, maybe I do. What's net option sentiment on coin, Steven?
Coin is at 96.
It's down. I might get out of it. I got 3 metas. I don't know when that happened. Oh, I have 2 ASTS in here. Nice. Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm almost 30% above the market now. Again. Oh, I still got MSCR. Okay. What was I doing here? Here we go. Okay, how many we got here? We got 53. Wow, that's getting pretty big. And 39. Okay. I'm glad I feel good about that. All right, Steven. I don't know why this keeps doing this, but can you let me know? I'm posting this. Just call out with those. Oh, it's doing it again. God damn it. I forgot it did that. Hold on. I think Slack will post better, and I'm posting it to you in Slack.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. All right, just call out those net option sentiments when you have them.
Kai 59 KAI, Erie 65, Rick 22, SCL 32, ESCA 24, NL 27.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely have to add some shorts. We don't want to get too whacked out. What is going on with AMKR? Wow, that's something I haven't seen in a while. Moderna. I'm definitely going to look at the chart on Moderna. what do I got here? We wanted a consumer defensive. I don't know what's going on with G, but we are gonna. I think we closed out our IIPRs. That's like so. Boy, and then I think we just want to get, as we sometimes like to do, let's just get the largest cap technology thing that we can de-risk. Oh God, I hate when I do that. Okay. What happened? Why are you being like this? I don't know what I did. No, I can't see anything. Hmm. Data processing is not high enough yet. I've done well with IT now. No. Okay. Don't want to overdo it. Okay, yeah, that looks great. Okay. Little side quest.
Uh-oh. Nick said you mentioned IHRT and now it's recovered today. They're listening.
See? Oh, if Nick's here, I'll answer your question. I was wondering. I'll do that. Nick asked me earlier today on oh no, I don't want that. Leave me alone. Is it normal for NOS to go from 10 to 65 and back to 10 in the span of the next election? Yes. So what I always like to say is there's always information in something. If an option sentiment is moving that fast, it likely means there are some options contracts that are very thinly traded and prices move fast on them, and calls could flip above, puts in terms of the prices pretty quickly. So yeah, what that is almost always telling you is that there's thinly traded options, right? At least a fair number of the strikes and expirations, and that's normal behavior for that, right? If you see that in if you saw that in like Apple, I'd run for the hills. That's not normal behavior, but it really depends on the market cap of the company. The smaller caps, it's quite possible, and I would say even farther, that's telling you something about the stability of the situation inherently. Hopefully that answers your question well, Nick. Look. All right, let's look at a couple of these. What is going on with Amcor? I prefer the one down here. Interesting. Sure, why not? I'm sold. NBIS has been on such a crazy run. It's funny that it's considered. I'll do that too, but we can't just. That's it. We're done with these like high risk. I'm not doing Vulcan Mines. LSCC, I'm a little tempted, but I'm not going to. No, I feel good about that because we got really out of whack. Okay, so first we are going to share. Dell is up there. I think we already have Lemonade. Should I? No, I'm getting in. Sorry, I'm getting in MNRA too. mRNA. I don't know what's going on with it, but I gotta think it's something. If we're seeing it in momentum score. Let's take a look. What is going on with you? Does anyone know the mRNA? Let's ask our friend. We will come back. Oh, it's really just getting above those EMA lines. Yeah, this could be ready for a pretty big breakout. When I often go on the 1 week, it's still. Let's see. The one thing I don't like about these charts is it's like a little hard to see like where the like high and low were, as well as I can see it on like Webull. Like, yeah, it's bouncing pretty hard off these lows. I kind of want to get involved, but not like right here on the spot. On the 1 minute, it's not necessarily showing, but like I could get involved.
I just see this headline and NVIDIA shares kind of popping up 2.5%. They're investing $100 billion in OpenAI as part of data center build out.
100 billion?
Yeah.
Maybe
So
maybe
who's
it'll be like,
OpenAI's daddy now? Microsoft or Nvidia then? I don't know.
well, now I'm wondering if they're like a venture company, you know?
They do seem to do a lot of that.
They got CoreWeave, now they got OpenAI. It'd be really funny if they did continue, like Quantum did take them overtake them, but it didn't matter because they had they had a very profitable investment portfolio.
Nvidia's the next Berkshire.
Yeah, it might be time to cut bait on coin, but I'm gonna watch a little longer. Okay, nothing too interesting. Let's get this. But I did get into mRNA, right? I'm definitely gonna look. Oh, did we forget? Matt's. We got the psychedelics for Matt. All right. Anything else? Any other? CoreWeave popping in the last 15 minutes. All right. Yeah. Let's see. Let's
CoreWeave's
check
up
out
6% now on the day.
Well, people are probably assuming that that part of this OpenAI deal is maybe they're gonna get a piece of it.
I guess they could be the data center provider, right?
Yeah. You gotta love Prospero and CoreWeave, right? It's at 97 and option sentiment was at 96 on Friday. I thought about getting out, but I'm like, no. If um um if it looks good in Prospero, it goes up. If net option sentiment is bullish, it goes up. I mean, upside is a little bit different, but yeah, as long as I got this pattern, I'm gonna keep riding it.
It's been interesting to see. Thank you, everybody, for chatting today. We had a lot of comments, so that's always awesome to see. Thank you, George. We had a great discussion. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. We've had almost 2,500 people in here, and we will be back live Wednesday, 3 p.m. So we'll see everybody then. Thank you, George. Have a nice day. See you, everybody. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.